The final couple of aspects of the charter revision we're going to talk about are the advisory questions and then a brief closing word about the implications of the elimination of the town meeting provision. So we'll go with Marianne Jacob for the beginning of the thoughts on the advisory questions. Marianne?
Thanks, John. As John Godin mentioned in the beginning of the segment, the question is very simple. Is the proposed budget for the Board of Selectmen too low? Yes or no? Is the proposed budget for the Board of Education too low? Yes or no? And what really compelled me to support this, I think, is how simple it was in advising what to happen if the budget fails. Because really, it doesn't, because every voter gets to answer that question, whether they voted yes or whether they voted no, it gives some direction as to what to do if it fails, as opposed to just hearing from the people who voted no on why they voted no in the vote that just transpired. So to me, that's an important piece that differentiates this question from ones we've seen before.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that, bifurcation alone certainly helps to give the voters more of a say in what they feel on the budget, but those alone would not have helped us with the difficulties in the budget season last time. The advisory questions are just another data point that the council can use when they're deliberating on a failed budget to determine what course of action to take.
Right, and perhaps it's not the perfect answer, but it does provide better directional guidance than we've ever had before. One of the questions after multiple failed referendums last time was, well, why did it vote? Why did it fail? Was it too high or too low? And I think in really considering action coming out of that type of question, you would need to understand people who voted both yes and no, whether they think it's too high or too low. But very specifically, this doesn't exactly answer that question as to why did it fail. It answers an overall question among everybody whether or not they think it's too low or not. So it's imperfect, but again, it's better guidance than we've ever had.
Mm-hmm. And the final point regarding the the town meeting provision.
Yeah, the town meeting provision for the past several years, as long as I can remember, we have always had a machine vote after for the third referendum. And so this is sort of memorializing current practice. The idea is that a machine vote, you attract more voters and you get more input from more citizens, which is always better than a few people deciding. And so this is more or less putting into the charter what has been done by statutory allowance in a certain state statute that allowed the Board of Selectmen to move town meeting referenda vote meetings to a referenda vote.
Right, because right now our charter says after the second one it should go to a town meeting, and we already have concerns about the low number of people who show up for referendum, but it's a much smaller group who would show up for a town meeting, and that really isn't a true representative form of deciding what the budget should be.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
I think the best outcome is going to continue to be cooperation on the front end that allows us to pass a budget on the first try. That was some of the research that I heard that came out of the Charter Revision Commission's work, that towns that are successful at passing their budget the first time cooperate more, and we've already taken steps to start doing that this year, so hopefully we won't even need to use this provision.
Yes. And I also am hopeful that these changes will pass. I think they will give the council a few more tools in the event we need them. But again, I'll agree with Marianne when she says we need to work harder to communicate to the voters what they're voting on, and then that will certainly go a long way to passing budgets.
Right. So while we can count on a good voter turnout in a couple of weeks, I think we also want to take the opportunity to say, come out and vote for the town budget and the education budget in the spring as well. We need to get a Get Out the Vote campaign organized here, because it has been an ongoing issue among anyone who tunes in to realize that a small proportion of voters are deciding the fate of our finances for the entire town. It's something everyone should be aware of and try to correct.
Thank you. As you're watching from your left, Marianne Jacob, Vice Chairman of the Legislative Council, Jeff Capisi, Chairman of the Legislative Council. and Paul Lundquist, a representative of the Legislative Council, and to your far right, John Godin, who was the chairman of the Charter Revision Commission that brought this vote to your ballot on November 6th. Don't forget to vote not only for your presidential, state, and federal candidates, but also to understand and vote for the Newtown's latest charter revision. Thank you, folks, for coming out.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you, John.